mistake you see entrepreneurs make?
I think underestimating the implementation side of an idea. Because entrepreneurs, their risk, what makes entrepreneurs unique is that they're willing to take risk.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right,
there's
absolutely.
There's a lot of corporate professional employees that they go that route because they're maybe they don't have as big a risk appetite. But entrepreneurs, generally, they start their businesses with their own money and borrow from friends and family and other things. And there's stages of their evolution that means they have to make bets, right?
Right.
So when you start, you're making a bet with your own money. Later on, when you're growing, you may have to leverage your company up where maybe you can't make the payments, but you need to do it because you need to grow. Or maybe you need to give up equity in your business in order to attract enough capital to keep on growing your business.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all things that require bets. Or if you're growing, maybe you need to hire another 20 people. And, you start thinking about payroll and managing them, and maybe each person needs a truck or they need a computer, they need whatever. That's all cash that you need to come up with. And so you're making the bet without the guarantee that the returns will be there. So I would say they're risk friendly, but then at the same time, when you do things, it's not just the idea, it's how well you execute, back to performance.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to clean buildings, I better do it better than anybody else, and I better figure out how to do it as cost effectively as I can, and I better do it so I can keep good people that can help me do it. Or if I'm going to write a new software program for Microsoft or whoever it might be, I've got to have the right programmers. I've got to be disciplined about them paying attention to all the details so that there's no bugs, there's no weaknesses in the software, et cetera, et cetera. So I have to really be focused on the detail in both cases. And then how do I innovate beyond that?
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend, or I shouldn't say a friend, but a person I met a while back that cleaned buildings. And sometimes people look at that work and say, oh, geez, that's very labor intense. And it is. And, doing one building, then a second building, then a 10th building, then a 20th building requires management. And sometimes people think about it linearly. So I just have to have a foreman or a forewoman in each location. Well, this individual said, look, I need to now get ahead of the game, be better than everybody else. And so what I need to do is also provide security assurances as I clean buildings, because now we all worry because everybody has computers. We don't want people sneaking into offices and putting in viruses or stealing information or whatever off of computers. So then how do you do that if you're a building cleaner? Well, you move most of your management capability by writing or getting a software package where everything is in the cloud and you know where every one of your workers is and when they entered an office space, what time they entered, what time they left, so you know exactly who went where, and you can assure then the people that are paying you that, if there's any problem, we know exactly who was there, when were they there, all that kind of stuff, because we enable it through, sensor technology, software, and essentially through leveraging the cloud. And now I can do things I could never do before in the business. And I use those as examples because all of us can innovate. All of us. And it doesn't take a PhD in engineering to innovate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a PhD in computer science to innovate. There's always somebody that can write a program for you if you have the idea. And so taking that idea, being disciplined about the detail so that when it is implemented, the performance is great.
Right. That's so amazing. Now, I have some questions for you. I was checking on your website, and I found an area that to me was very interesting, and the leadership principles. And then I read through them, and I said, "Oh my God, this is beautiful." So Do you mind if I ask you about these leadership principles one by one, and you can, give me a brief description of how do you see them? So the first is lead from the front.
Yes, that's a core principle for anybody that, aspires or wants to be a leader of a team of one or a team of, in some cases for me, 60, 70,000 people in a company. And that is that when you're the leader, you're out front. You should be out front. And everybody wants to see you out front. And people watch everything that you do. So if I ask you to climb a mountain, that's, 8,000 feet tall, then I better be ready to climb a mountain that's 9,000 feet tall. So that people know I will never ask you to do something I would not do myself or do even more aggressively. That's leading from the front. And then sometimes the risk, you have to take risk away for your people to be more free, more enabled. And sometimes you say, I will take the risk, but I trust that you are going to do what I'm asking you to do. But if it goes bad, and it's not because you didn't try, not because you didn't do things right, but it just was the wrong decision, I take the risk. I'm the leader. I'm the CEO. And so you lead from the front. And what happens then is you unloose, you make people willing to do even more, right?
Right.
They're not holding back. They're not holding back because you're on the team, you're out front, you will take, I say it in a military sense, you'll take the first bullet. And when people know that, then they're willing to take their bullets too.
And that makes a lot of difference in a corporation or any kind of, company, even small companies, correct? The guy that has a use bar, for instance, he needs to know how to do a good use, so he can show it to his employees, correct?
Yeah. I'll give you a real life example. When I was asked to go down to Australia and run this, basically the largest company in Australia, Telstra, which is like the AT&T of the U.S., we had to do a privatization of $20 billion, which means the government used to they used to be the majority owner, and we would take them down to a minority owner. So a lot of money. And at the same time, I needed to transform the company because the company had been getting, beaten up every day by its competitors. So I decided that we were going to build a brand new next generation network that would be the largest, fastest, high-speed wireless broadband network in the world. And I said that we needed to do it in a year, and my team was great. They figured out how to do it, but the punchline was nobody believed it could be done. And I announced it publicly, and everybody told me it was a big mistake, right? Because, the probability of being wrong was high. And I told my team, I will take the heat. I will take the blame if we can't do it, but I believe you can do it with me knocking all the barriers out of the way, et cetera, et cetera. And we innovated around process and all kinds of things. And when we turned it up, all my competitors were caught with their pants down, so to speak, because they never believed that we could do it. Investors didn't believe we could do it, and then when we did it, then they loved it. And customers, when they got it, it was so much better than anything that they had ever had before. They all switched over, to our new services. And then our employees, and this was the big thing, building confidence in people that they can do a lot more than they think they can by letting them do it was huge. So the morale in our company, when, you're losing, morale is always low and all that. And when you win, the World Cup, right?
Right.
That's the best in the world. And how do people feel that are on the team, that are the fans of the team, et cetera, et cetera? People are jumping for joy. And so that's what leading from the front is all about, is enabling people, being decisive, being strategic, but also enabling your people to go do what they're capable of doing And your job is to enable them, to facilitate them, and in some cases to protect them.
Right. I'm reading this as if I could be a small entrepreneur, small business entrepreneur, and I have 4 employees. I have to apply the same philosophy. Otherwise, I'm never going to grow. Correct?
Exactly.
Interesting. Now, tell me about focus on the customer experience.
Well, all of us, we all consume something, right?
Right.
We all buy food. We all buy, maybe not everybody buys cars. We all buy furniture. We all buy, whatever it might be, books, magazines, TV, whatever. And the question for everybody is always, how do I make it simple? How can it be great for me so that when I use it, I don't have problems? When I buy it, it's not a problem, all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is who can make it the easiest, best experience? And my experience has been that when you create a great experience, a buying experience, a user experience, again, 8.5 times out of 10, you win. And people will pay you even more for a great experience than just getting a commodity-like experience.
Right.
And so, again, in my case, every company that I've run, and I've run 4 companies, 3 of them were publicly traded, every time I go in, I sit down with my team and say, okay, let's put ourselves in our customers' shoes, and at the same time, let's go ask the customers, what would be the best experience? What would make you excited? What would make you want to spend even more with us? And when you get all that data and input, then you go design around it. It's not because Sol thinks that customers want this or that. Now, I may be right half the time, but maybe I'm incomplete half the time, or maybe I'm wrong 10% of the time. Who knows? But when you have your ideas and you then match it against customers' ideas, and then you execute, you build on it. What customers want is their experience, a great experience. I got to tell you, I have proof from around the world, whether it was in Denver, Colorado, or Madagascar, or Botswana, or Romania, or Hong Kong, or Sydney, or wherever, guess what? You win. You win where you're the best at the customer experience.
Yeah. At the end, all of us are humans, and we have a certain degree of common expectations about whatever thing we acquire. We pay, we demand a kind of a service. So if we talk to that common soul, which is the mankind, probably want to satisfy the same expectations, and they're going to have a great experience, and your principle, I think, is going to apply all over around the world.
Yep.
Now tell me about invest to win.
Well, this goes back to what I was telling you about in Australia, or when I was in Orange in London, or U.S. West. In every case, there were always problems and issues. And in a technology-based world, now that we're in a digital world, things are always evolving. So the question is who can do the next thing next and first? And so my view is those who are afraid to invest because you might make a bad investment, you're never going to get great returns. You might get moderate returns, or you might get negative returns because you're always too late. But those who invest to win, they're very thoughtful, but they're also aggressive at the same time in terms of trying to be first to market, trying to do other things, which means you have to have a winning mindset when you invest.
Right.
Because it's not just to keep up. It's not just to maintain. Otherwise all you do is tread water or you drown at some point.
Which is actually the reality of most of the small businesses. They are just creating a job for themselves. They make little money, and instead of going to work 9 to 5, they go to work 6 a.m. to midnight. But they are not growing, and that's one of the main issues for small entrepreneurs, don't you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they got in the business because they wanted to be independent. They